Alright, here we are. We're going to do a big bore shock cap mod today. I know I've done this before in one of my other videos, but it was combined with a bunch of other stuff, so this is just going to be straight informational just for this exact mod. It'll just be a quick video for this. So here are the things we need laid out on the table here. First thing is the big bore shocks. I prefer to use Traxxas part number 4962 only because you get 8 of them. Considerably cheaper than buying a pair for 25 bucks. This was about 75 bucks for 8 of them, so it's can outfit 2 trucks for considerably cheaper. So in this kit you get this little box full of some hardware, some preloads for the springs, some silicone oil, and the 8 shocks. Pretty much we're gonna just toss all of it except for the shock bodies and the shock shafts. The oil, it's mystery oil. It doesn't even tell you a weight, so really how can you use it for any application when you don't even know what it is? And we're going to be putting the Mini-T springs, so we don't need any of those preloaders or any of that hardware. So I'll show you what part of the shocks we are going to be using. Okay, there it is. That's all we're going to be using. The rest is going to be coming in way of Mini-T springs and Crawler Innovation spring retainers. This is what I took off of the shock, and we won't be using any of that stuff. Just a little retainer ring, the spring retainer, and the spring. Also over here I've got the parts we need for this mod. Got some little O-rings. These, it doesn't matter where you get these or what number. They are the ones that I'm using here are axial part number AXA1201, only because it was cheap, it was what I found, and they fit on the 3mm hardware, as you can see here. Those are going to be to hopefully seal the shocks. This is the first time I've tried that method, but I'm going to give it a shot and hopefully it works. I just need to break in here and pause this and correct myself. I said that the O-rings may make a good option. I just want to let you guys know that in the end it did not work out. They would just pop off the head of the screw, so they were not effective. So I ended up using some shoe goo, which I will show you later in the video, so stay tuned. These are some 3x16mm screws. They are considerably too long. I will be cutting them down, but that's what I've got, so that's what I'm using. And these are the 3mm rod ends. This one is RPM. It's a little bit longer. I prefer to use these ones, which are Traxxas, simply because they're shorter, so they make it so that the shock is overall shorter when you're done the mod. The RPM ones are fine. I'll just trim them down a little bit so that they're not as long. Back to the screws there, I told you 16mm would be way too long. That's a 16mm threaded all the way into that rod end. So I measured the distance that's left out of the rod end, and that's 10mm, so that would leave 6 inside the rod end. To account for the width, or the material, the cap size, the aluminum on the cap that it's going to have to go through, as well as the O-ring, I think I'm going to leave them at about 8mm, and that should be good for getting it through the cap and through the O-ring and into the rod end securely. So if you want to save yourself a little bit of time, you can just get 8mm by M3 screws. Okay, so here we are. I've got the shock caps here at various degrees of completion. This is a stock shock cap. Nothing special about it. It's just a stock big bore shock cap. And another pause. One thing I forgot to mention at this point here was that you need to remove the bladders out of the shock cap. Otherwise they will melt when you cut the hoop off, so don't forget to do that. Here is the stock cap with the hoop cut off. I just use a Dremel cutoff wheel on that. I do put it back on the shock body to cut this off. It's a good way of securing it. You don't want to use pliers too much on these because you will oval them out and then they'll leak. I did kind of have to sacrifice the shock body though. As you can see, it's a little bit mangled from getting the caps on and off, because once you start cutting them, they heat up, they expand, the shock body expands, then they get tight, and it's kind of tough to get them off of there. But that's why I'm doing this. This is kind of a trial and error thing so that you guys don't make the same mistakes I did. Well, I guess this is how it goes when you do a DIY on the fly. I just wanted to hop in here and say I found a better way of doing this without marking up the caps too bad, and that was to thread it onto the shock body and then back it off about 2 threads, and then use a pair of vice grips on the shock cap. At that point, prevents it from ovaling out because the shock body is holding it, and prevents it from getting stuck on the shock body as well. You still don't want to put the vice grips on there very tight, as loosely as possible, but still maintaining grip. But you can get the shock cap off afterwards without marking it up too bad. So that's the first part of the mod. And now the second part is to drill a hole in it. This hole, I don't know what the imperial size is. I know it's an imperial size drill bit, but I measured it with my digital caliper and it came out to about 2.8 mil, and it fits the 3 mil screws just perfect, so you'll minimize the chance of leaking. And here is the finished product. This is the rod end on it, 3 mil screw in there, and as I said earlier, I did not use the O-ring. I ended up using some let's see if I can grab it here, marine grade shoe glue. You use it for everything. Obviously this tube is well used, and I'm in the middle of the project right now, so it's open and it's a mess. But anyways, that's what I used. I just spread a little bit on the inside before I put the screw in, a little bit on the outside before I put the screw in, and I put the screw through, threaded it into the rod end, and there you have it. That's the rod end shock cap mod. As you can see, the shock cap is a little bit chewed up as well from when I had it on the body and I was trying to remove it after cutting off the hoop. Alright, there are the LOSI Mini-T springs and the Crawler Innovations shock caps specifically made for the big bores using the Mini-T springs. Product numbers on those are LOSB 1119 for the rear spring set, 1117 for the front spring set. Alright, so just so you can see the spring retainers, the reason we use these is there's no cut in them, which means they're not going to pop off on you. They're also made specifically for the rod ends on the big bore, so you have to take the rod end off of the shaft in order to put these on. So you take the rod end off of the shaft, then you put on your spring, and then your spring retainer, and then put the rod end back on, and it'll all be secure. Okay, so there they are, one's complete and one's stock one. The one negative impact to this is it lengthens the shocks. So the stock one's about 3 7/8 inches long eye to eye, and the modded one's about 4 1/8. So I will have to limit those down. I'll just do some internal limiting. I'll take that rod out of there and put some spacers on it inside the shock so that it limits it down a little bit. Reduces the travel a little bit, but it should still be lots of travel. That's currently what I use on my crawler. So here's the finished product with the LOSI Mini-T springs, the Crawler Innovations retainer, and the shock cap mod. All done.